Did you know when dealing with young people in the church, there has always been a trend with trying to keep them engaged? No matter the decade, no matter the year, that has always been the same trend. Now, in a pandemic, churches are doing all they can on social media to create and keep community. And social media just happens to be where the young people are. I would like to welcome you to the series, The Church, Young People, and Social Media. Over the next few weeks, you will witness focus groups that were held on Zoom featuring a number of great leaders and pastors in the St. Louis Metropolitan Area, as well as young people themselves. The conversation is all about the church, young people, and social media.
I'd have to say that I actually agree with everything that has been spoken so far. When I started our church actually started at the advent of Twitter. And so a lot of our traction and even the new faces that we've seen and the brand that is really went around the world has been a result of tweets. And so from Twitter, we moved into Facebook, then we moved into YouTube, and then I don't even know if y'all remember Ustream. We used to stream our services on Ustream with a faulty video camera, a webcam that we would stream our services, horrible quality, but we were just absolutely committed to making sure that people got the message. I think that one of the things to add to this conversation is just about the philosophy, as Apostle Baylor said. I have found that we philosophically have ideas that cause us to contain our gospel to our buildings. And so because of that containment, we don't celebrate any platform that forces us to have to take it outside of our buildings because we were so used to the in-person gathering. And it was because of our church experience. Like I've always said to people, we will always forever have an element of the gathering. We see that in the scripture. The gathering won't ever go away. But the ability to reach the masses with the gospel of Jesus Christ requires us to use whatever system they use to ingest information. Media is that platform. I think what happened in the African American experience is when the internet hit, it really took off past our ability to even catch up. Internet hit our churches, and remember, we were going to Radio Shack to get the stuff we were getting. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were going to Radio Shack just to get your stuff, and look, as long as you could hear and the mics were loud, that was good enough. So if you could hear outside of the church, that was good enough. But the reality is now we're living in a world where people like to try you before they buy you. And so they're going to look at your social media. They're going to look at your website. They're going to listen to your messages. They're going to do all of that before they ever encounter you. And so I think it's important for us to really embrace digital media. In forms also, I'd like to say marketing, because it's not just the broadcast of our services, but it's marketing, it's design, it's websites, it's print media. All of that encompasses that idea to get the message from your location to people all around the world.
That's awesome. And that sounds like kind of what Kai was speaking of with how, there's a big beef recall. And so their target now is, let's advertise chicken and we're going to bring more people in because don't nobody want no beef. So in a sense, the church has to do the same thing, develop a strategy. Yeah. Did anybody else?
Let me say, Bishop. Yeah, when he gets through, Daisy, I want to just say something about that as we move forward, because there's some very important things all pastors just need to know in order to stay on the cutting edge of what's going on. You can't just be reactionary and wait for things to happen. You have to see things in the future and then make the changes now. So when you catch up to the future, you're already ready. But that's not how pastors do things. Pastors are basically managers. They're not visionaries. Visionaries know what's going to happen in the future, and they plan now for that. So when they get to the future, they already prepared.
Come on,
but that's
Bishop.
not how most preachers do it.
And I was actually taught, just to piggyback off Bishop is a lot of your men of God were chosen by God, because they had a horizontal relationship with the people. So there was a connection to God, but there is also a horizontal relationship with the people. And the problem is we've lost the pulse of the people to prevent us from seeking God for their needs, and also preparing and develop methodology for those to come.
That's good.
Yeah, and also, Deja, one of the major issues is this. This brother was spot on, man. The model that we grew up as parishioners and all that has changed. Think about this. Years ago, the pastor knew everything. He ran everything. That's over. Man, with the way society is now, the way church has to be managed now, there's no way one man can know it all. It's too diverse now to do what you have to do. You need to have a like, for instance, going to Faith Miracle Temple, Deja, you have helped our church tremendously. Tremendously. The stuff you have taught me has been crazy. There's no way we could be where we are if it wasn't for you. But I had to have enough humility to let you do what you do. I had to have enough humility to say, okay, Deja, you are the leader when it comes to social media. You're the leader, not me. You are. That's a play on words, but you know more about that than I do. So I'm going to let you lead me in that. And that's like, if you know that's exactly, I chime in, that, but I listen to you. And that hasn't been the model that we have had for years.
Wow. Thank you, Bishop. That's powerful. And I studies show that preachers, their concern is young people, but a lot of preachers, older preachers, are not willing to train anyone younger because they're afraid of someone taking their spot. That's research. That's nothing that I'm saying, nothing that I believe. I mean, I see it, but I'm saying that's nothing I've made up. Barna research.
I think that's probably that might be more older than what it is now. I think that used to be the case. I'm seeing more and more now, and I'm 40 years old, but I'm seeing more and more now where I've seen older generational preachers and fathers are welcoming younger ministers to come in and assist. I do remember back in the day, that might have been the case, but I'm not sure how true it is nowadays.
Oh yeah, no. And this is just a survey across the nation. So yeah, numbers are still peaking at. Mm-hmm. Thank God for change and progression, but the majority, and I can send that to you all for you all to read that article. But numbers are still hiding. It's peaking with people, older generations not ready to give anybody a mantle.
And
one of the things that has certainly happened over the years is that the older preachers, I'm talking about the older preachers, many of which have already gone on, they themselves weren't educated. And because they weren't educated, they certainly relied upon the Bible and certainly God to lead and guide them. And nowadays we're dealing with more diversely educated pastors. When I say diversely educated, I'm not speaking of divinity degrees. I'm thinking of doctors and lawyers. I'm thinking of broadcasters and even some of your sports figures that are retired from sports are now pastoring, being called into the pastorate. And what has happened is we all know that the only constant that exists in the world is change. With more education and more diverse education, there's a greater willingness to embrace change. Now, I will go ahead and say this. Those that don't want to embrace change, there's a problem. The people will suffer. They have to embrace change. Change is again, it's the mantra. And being able, as Bishop Baylor had said, utilizing you and your expertise is important, because I don't know it all. When we do our live stream, I need to have a technical person there, because I don't know it all. To show you something just blew my mind. I didn't, we were using a cell phone at the time, and I forgot to charge it up. and I didn't have a charging cable. So here I'm trying to figure out, why isn't this thing working? And it turned out to be something just that simple, but my mind didn't click that way. And my technical guy, he come running out. He says, "You're not plugged up. You're not plugged up. You're not plugged up." So yes, there are times we don't know, and because we don't know, and we don't want to know. I think you pastors will agree. We don't want to know everything. We've got enough to do. We don't want to know everything. Because we don't want to know everything, we want to pull from you all that do know.
That's good. That is how you make leaders. Did anyone else want to chime in before we move on? All good. Okay. So the next question, I believe we already basically touched, but I'm sure you all know social media is important, and young people really believe it's important. I'm a millennial. My alarm clock beeps off my phone. So I wake up in the morning and I'm touching my phone to turn off my alarm. I have Bible notifications that will give me a morning scripture as soon as I touch my alarm. So it's there. And you all touched on how a lot of churches are embracing social media now because of COVID. But speaking of pre-COVID, what is the importance, not just because we're in a pandemic, but what is your all take first off on churches embracing social media, and mainly to reach the masses? You all talked about how social media is a tool where the Great Commission, we're fulfilling that. You're going everywhere to preach the gospel. So let me back it up. What is your take on social media first to reach the masses?
I think we've all pretty much mentioned that it is of necessity. It's not an option. It's of necessity, because you can stream a service. Let's take a smaller congregation. Pre-COVID, you can stream a service and have 50, 100 people there, but yet you have 600 viewers of whatever message or Bible lesson you're teaching. And I can't help but believe that of those 600 viewers, and maybe upwards of 1,000, maybe more than that. I'm just being very conservative here with the numbers. But you out of that, you're going to have someone whose heart is changed, someone whose mind is changed, someone who recognizes they need salvation, they need God, which is the whole purpose of everything we do. They need God. And if you can get, and let me add this, there are times that if it wasn't for a message that went out over media, they would have never gotten that message. I got a phone call from someone who said, "Can you direct me to a church in my city that will baptize me in the name of Jesus Christ?" And I said, "Yes, I can." And I did the research and found a place. Outside of social media, maybe I wouldn't have gotten that call. Maybe somebody else would have. I don't know. But I can say this, because this person tuned in and were comfortable with me, they called me and I directed them. So yeah, it's vital in fulfilling what God has called all of us to do.
Deja, can you do me a favor and repeat the questions? I want to make sure that my response is on target.
So basically, what is your take on social media to reach the masses? And this is part one of the question.
Okay, awesome. I think that social media is a great tool for evangelism, but not the model for discipleship.
I didn't hear that
Wanna
last
expand?
part.
I said that social media is a great tool for evangelism, but it's not the model for discipleship. I think
Oh,
that
okay.
a lot of churches rely and they stabilize their ministry there. But when you look at discipleship, it's more of a more of a connection with the teacher or pastor or whoever whoever is whoever's been designated for that for that position to disciple a person. And when I look at discipleship, it's not necessarily just walking you through the scriptures and teaching you all about the scriptures, but it's about sharing one's life with someone else. And that's where a lot of us miss it, because we don't really understand what that looks like from a social construct, because our leaders are made to be perfection of the model Christian or the model person with God. And so they don't see their times of anger. They don't see their times of sadness and things of that nature. And so I'm not necessarily being taught how to apply word in reality to my life. And I believe that Jesus was the perfect model of disciple. When you look at the disciples who followed Jesus, they saw him in times of anger, when he went through the temple throwing over tables, smacking people and things of that nature. They saw him in times of sadness when he went to Lazarus' gravesite. And I think that when you talk about the development of a Christian or the development of a God follower, it is not absent of discipleship.
I want to chime in too, Deja, at this point, if it's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to say that I have to agree with Pastor Jerome and the question about how we're using evangelism to reach the masses. And I know you didn't get to the second part of the question yet, meaning specifically about reaching the young people. But I've done something here lately since we have had the pandemic. And I've used social media, but not necessarily publicly yet. But I've just done it through, I did a video on Facebook some time ago, and I reached, not really targeting them, but some of the kids that were saved, at our church under the ministry of our young people when they were little, like 7 years old to be exact. And they, in their probably late 20s, early 30s now. And I've actually been able to, because of just one video, they contacted me, inboxed me, and some of them were going through situations. They had walked away from the church, left the Lord, they were in abusive relationships. But just because of that one social media video, I had to, as a matter of fact, contact me. And I have done something that is called the Unchurch. And what I've been doing, and it's going now into our fourth week, it's been a meeting with just the unchurched. So I didn't even tell our church about it. I just reached out to the unchurched, these people who used to be members of the church, and I've had them come to like a small group, with their masks and their gloves and all that stuff on. But I've had them come to a small group, and I found that to be very effective, even with, and that started with just social media, and then even with the just contacting them. And what's so interesting is that these are people, particularly in that age group, who may not have come to church or have gone to church. Some of these people I had invited before. I invited them to concerts and other things, and I did not get the response that I'm getting right now with doing this small group during the pandemic, and that was through social media. So it's almost like I have a whole new church outside of the church. That's why I'm calling them the unchurched. So I think I told one of the elders about, and it really kind of happened by, I can't really say by accident. It's something I've been praying about, but it's interesting that right now I'm dealing with people who are actually unchurched. Either they were sinners, never belonged to somebody's church, or they were backsliders, and some were backsliders from this church, and some had even left this church, wouldn't come to a service. But one lady told me in particular, she left some years ago, and she said, I've always loved you. So I'm going off what Pastor Jerome was saying. She said, and I've always wanted to be close to you. So now in this small group of unchurched, she feels like she has that opportunity. But I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm bringing others of the ministers in. But I just think it's interesting that I like what he said, and I agree, because discipleship, he said, is good for evangelism, but it's not the model for discipleship. And what he's saying by that is so true, that discipleship has to do with relationship, sharing one's life, being able to be transparent with people, walking with them through problems and situations, and causing them to feel that sense of closeness and intimacy with somebody, whether it's me or one of the other leaders. And so I found that to be effective, and it stemmed from social media. Yeah.
That is awesome. Very powerful. And just that one video did all of that.
In fact, there was one man who he flew here from New York. The Lord was dealing with him, and I just want to say this to all of the leaders and pastors, that even in the midst of this pandemic, and probably especially in the midst of the pandemic, people are hungry for God, and God is dealing with people. And even if our doors are not open, full scale, there has to be somebody who will minister to these people. This man flew from New York City, left his living girlfriend, his job, his everything that he had, his life, because he felt that he knew that he had to change his life. And he really was basically responsible for helping me start this group that I do, this unchurched, because we're not having services, and he needed a way to connect. And so he asked, he said, are you all having service on such and such? And I said, no, we're not. But he's on every line, every prayer line we have, every social media outlet that we're doing the sermons on. But this also gives him a way to just connect and to show up and to be there, and all of those other people too. So it's been phenomenal to see that happen. Yeah.
Wow, that makes me happy to hear. Anyone else want to elaborate?
I was just going to say that nowadays a lot more what we're seeing is that social media is more of a convenience to everybody. But in the midst of the convenience, it's really a big distraction sometimes, because people they're not in the confined space of the church. You're in your homes, or you're in your car, and if especially if you're trying to drive and listen to the word at church, you're going to be distracted because your attention is really not there. And so a lot of times what we hear, we don't hear. And so the convenience of social media is that we can go back and watch it again at a later moment. And if a lot of ministries are really, really smart about it, they would grab some clips of their messages and just pop them on timelines. And that way you'll get people to go back and watch the entire message. They hear certain excerpts of what happened on the timeline. But that's pretty much what it's done for us now. It's basically caused to be in the world of convenience to hear it, but we really have to be in a place where we can really hear what we're hearing and not be distracted by outside sources and things of that nature.
Very good point.
I think one of the uses for social media was to be social. I think that one of the elements that I think we have to consider as a church is that if we become just blasters of our experience and blasters of our service without people feeling like there's a continuity with you as a person, then most oftentimes people won't really ingest your content, right? And so one of the things that we do is to make sure that we're social, like really finding out what's going on in the life of people, engaging in comments, responding to inboxes, making sure that if somebody asks for prayer, we're specifically praying for them or asking for resources that we're connecting to them. So I think that one of the elements is that we have to make sure that we are being social, because that's where people actually connect to your content. So that's one of the things that I think is important to this conversation and why social media is important. I think also number two is people are looking for continuity. They're, you know, as pastors, I think I had the benefit of being able to be myself fully pastoring. There's been an evolution, right? But there used to be a time that, you know, you only saw the pastor in the pulpit, and that was the persona of what you had of the pastor, kind of like, you know, pastor got done preaching, he went to heaven, and the next time you seen him was when you had a church service, right? So social media actually allow people to get to know the person behind the position, which also comes with it is good and is bad. Understand that. But sometimes people bought into the person, which then made them buy into the ministry, which then made them buy into the content. So I think that that's one of the things that as social media is becoming the thing, people want to know you. And if they feel like they know you, oftentimes they buy into your message and your content deeper.
You spot on. Spot on. Me as a social media strategist, that's what we study. And I will agree with you, Bishop Jackson. And I see that, and it's just me speaking, with a lot of churches, we forget to be social with people on social media. And I actually have that as a question. Does every post on the church's social media page have to be spiritual? That doesn't mean to knock the doctrine or, disrespect God in any way, and we'll go ahead and mix it up. Do you think that every post on a church's social media page has to be spiritual?
I absolutely do not feel that it has to be spiritual. I feel that we have to meet people where they are. An example is even right now, amidst the protesting and the social injustices that are happening, that has captured the entire world, not just a region, but the entire world. Which then means that we, as a church, we have to also address that. If we leave it up to anger and hard-hearted people, and please understand, I'm not suggesting that every protester is angry and hard-hearted, but what I am suggesting is that we have seen what happens after a peaceful protest occurs. Then you have, you've always had this other element that has come in, which it tears and pulls on the heart of even the peaceful protesters. My whole point is this, that we, the church, we have to get involved, address the issues, speak to the issues, respond and reply. Pastor Tanya Brown made reference to the guy who reached out to her from New York. I would think that the other pastors here would probably say something similar, that they've had people who have reached out to them either anonymously via messenger or some other format, kind of like going to Jesus by night. They come to us by various ways in order to get an answer to a question. So no, it cannot be just church. It cannot be just religion. It has to be the entire social construct.
Thank you.
I would also. Can you hear me, Deja?
Uh-huh.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to join these powerful men and women on this call. I actually have another meeting.
Yeah, I just see your message. I'm sorry.
No worries. I wanted to publicly state that I believe that the church has an obligation to speak to the needs of the people. and it's not necessarily just a spiritual, because we're made up of mind, body, and spirit. And if we can't speak to all of that, then we've not done our job as ministers of the gospel. There's a scripture, and I can't cite exactly where it is found, but Jesus said that when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was naked, you didn't clothe me. And so we have an obligation not to bring people into a spiritual awareness of God, but we are obligated to be Him personified in hands and feet, and speaking to the issues that affect them in their lives, in their communities, in their families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Awesome point. Awesome.
There's
And
an,
Jerome,
I
one
was just
second.
going to say that there, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Jerome, I know you have to go, so thank you so much for joining us. Your feedback was really great.
thank you so
Awesome.
much. Love everybody. God bless you guys.
God bless you too. All right, Pastor Battle, I'm sorry. And
No, that's okay.
I'll make sure to wrap up the questions. But I'll let you go ahead, Pastor Battle.
No, I was going to also add to the scripture that Jerome was referencing that there's also a companion scripture that speaks to the issue of if the belly is empty and hungry, or if they're naked and cold, how can you really reach them? Which tells us that we have to deal with them holistically. It's hard for a hungry person to hear the grace of God. It's hard for a cold, shivering person to hear that gospel message. But if we can meet them at the point of their needs in some way or another, we're doing holistically what we should be doing as a church and as pastors. And that's something that's very, very, very important in reaching the people.
That's an awesome scripture reference. Did anyone else have anything to say? All good? Okay, and I'm going to jump around for the sake of time. So we're going to go ahead and dive into your church's social media strategy. First off, I want to know, does your church have a social media strategy?
I think all the churches represented here does. I don't. I hope I'm correct.
Deja, can you define what you mean from a technological point about strategy? Because I don't think that when you say strategy, you're just talking about posting about your services or having a time frame for your services. And you being an IT person, can you define what you're saying as far as strategy, or what strategies?
Yes, that's an awesome question. So what I mean by social media strategy, just like you said, it's not just you on there marketing your events. Like every post that you share on Facebook should have a purpose. Just like with different marketing groups, they're just not throwing anything at you. They're going to buy you in, let you know why something is good. This is who's talking about it, who's wearing it, and then people are excited and they want to buy the product. So the same should be with churches. Each post, I believe, should have a purpose. Of course, the ultimate goal is to gain people to Christ. But what is your strategy in a sense to reach people? Like, I'm going to make this post in effort to reach young people, in effort to reach baby boomers, and not just an event. A lot of people are scrolling by that. There's an influencer that I study and I look to his tips. His name is Brady Shear. He believes in the strategy of seizing the 167. And what this means is, say your church service is 1 hour. Well, there are 167 more hours to continue to grab the heart of people. You're not just going to throw your Sunday service. You're going to, like Bishop Jackson said, make engaging posts. I've seen posts where people on the church page, what's better, mayo or Miracle Whip? And it sounds crazy, but their idea is to get the engagement of people following them. And in those comments, you're going to read who likes what. Oh, okay. And that just creates a greater sense of community. So that's just an example of a social media strategy. So with that being said, would anyone like to share what their church social media strategy is? And if you don't have one, that's fine.
A sandwich spread.
Bishop Jackson.
we do have a social media strategy, and part of it is because our church is very relational. One of the things that we try to do is connect people to actually knowing that we're real people behind the keyboard. So a lot of our posts aren't necessarily, like, if you notice, like a lot of our graphics don't have my face on it. Because a lot of it is to make sure that we're building the continuity to the content and building people to community and to engage in the comments. So it depends on exactly what we're dealing with. So if we're doing a sermon series, then we have a specific strategy for that. If it's just to deal with algorithms, just so that we can make sure that our posts are out there, then we have specific stuff for that. We use humor. I mean, we use everything from humor to social issues. It gives us a complete gamut. And then what our church does is then we leverage my personality, right? So we don't make our brand my personality. We leverage my personality when it is time to actually get some content done. So if I need to jump in front of a camera, if I need to make a post, if I then need to jump in front of a specific issue, then that's where we leverage my personality, and I call it people capital, to then kind of drive even deeper into our systems. Because the goal is to actually get them more inside of our community, so that then eventually, as they're in our community, maybe there is a teaching, maybe there is an event, maybe there is an outreach that will connect them deeper to what we're doing, and then causes us to actually eventually get to either some in-person experiences or take our brand outside of just the St. Louis market.
That's awesome.
I like what Bishop Jackson has said about letting people know that there's real people behind the camera. And one thing I can speak about, and I hope the Church of God in Christ don't take my ordination, but you know, we love flyers and being dressed up and, you know, all of those things on flyers. So with some of the flyers that I've had made for some events, you know, one was like my graphics person did one like I was in cartoon mode and I was, you know, dressed down, and some things that we do on our page. And I tell my leaders, I'm like, I don't have to be on every flyer because I want people to see other people. I want people to know that we do have some young ladies in our church that's business. You know, we have some young ladies that's lawyers, and we have some young men that work in real estate. So they're just not seeing one face. And one thing that I've been doing as far as like with dealing with the youth at my church, as far as what we post and how we target it, is if someone comes to me, you know, and they say, hey, KP, this is what I'm dealing with. And then I have another, like 2 weeks ago, I had like 3 young people to come to me, and, you know, they were letting me know that the enemy was messing with their mind. You know, so the things I'm going to post, you know, I'm going to post something inspirational, you know, about, you know, praying, fasting, you know, how to control those things. You know, so like those are things that I do as far as like reaching out to them, even if it's a song, because we all know music is powerful. If it's a post or if it's a sermon clip from my pastor or me or someone else, that's how I target it as far as like what's the need and what's going on.
That's awesome. Did anyone else want to elaborate? You're on mute, Bishop. I'm sorry. It looked like Bishop was trying to talk.
Oh. Let Pastor talk first.
Okay. Go ahead, Pastor Tanya.
Okay. Oh, you had a question here that said, thank you, Bishop Bill. You had a question here that was a part of that, said, how are you targeting the youth audience? And that was part of the social media strategy. Did that get in there? No, I was interested in that, hearing that. I just was trying to see if they were speaking to that.
Yes, ma'am. That is part 2 of the question. If you all want to elaborate as well on how is your social media strategy catered to targeting young people?
Yeah, let me say this, Deja. Man, I had the opportunity to really fish for the first time in my life this past Friday. I'll be honest with you. I learned a lot about saving souls doing that. I'm serious. And one of the things I did learn is connected to the question that you just asked us, dealing with a strategy. And the way the connection is that I found that every fish is different.
Yeah.
All of them have different ways they operate. Well, I found this out. I thought fish were dumb. They're very smart. I didn't know that. There was certain bait for certain kind of fish. There were certain hooks for certain kind of fish. Had I went out there without having somebody to teach me all this stuff, I wouldn't have caught any fish at all. I didn't know that fish are so smart. When you hook them, they'll take the line and put it around a rock or a branch, and you will never catch them that way. They're that smart. So what that really taught me is winning souls. You all know the scriptures. Winning souls, you have to have a strategy.
Yeah.
And that's what you're asking us, Deja, a social media strategy. I'm going to say this, and I'll relinquish the floor. Man, millennials, and right now, we save all kind of people, all ages, but right now, the majority of the people that are coming to Christ in our church are millennials. People that have been saved or in a particular church, I'll say it like that, in a particular denomination, they're basically set for the most part. The people that are more apt to come to Christ are the young folks. So even though you win everybody, there must be some kind of strategy to reach those individuals. And we know when you deal with the youth today, it's through social media. It's just the way it is. I mean, they do everything. You mentioned it, Deja. Your phone is your alarm clock. I mean, they do everything with a cell phone. So what's up? So that's how everything works. So my point is that you were spot on with this question. And I'll say this, we are still working on being as intricate with it as Bishop Antoine dealt with. He really showed us what a strategy is.
Yes, he did.
I will say in reaching the young people, I will have to say that I'm actually showing where I'm getting older. All right. Because my youngest daughter is 15 years old and she's begging me to make a TikTok. Okay, so I'm gonna draw a parallel here. She's begging me to make a TikTok.
What's a TikTok?
It's basically an app where you can do these overlays, dances, like kind of skitty, arty kind of app. And so she's always sending me all these TikToks. Like, Dad, we should do a TikTok. Dad, let's record a TikTok. Now, I know pastor friends of mine that are on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok because it's hit what I would call a personality barrier for me. I'm not always that comfortable doing specific things on socials. So she's having to help me kind of break me out of even using socials to even reach her generation. So I think that when we're talking through social media, I think it's not just, what we're putting out there, but we really do have to think about our philosophies, our personalities, what we're actually comfortable with, and how sometimes those are barriers that we have to break beyond to reach a new generation of people. Our young people, because we're not doing, and look at me saying our young people, my kids' church and teen church have Zoom meetings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. My kids, Equation Kids, do Zoom on Tuesdays. The babies are getting in front of cameras doing Zooms for kids' church. With my children's church. And then the teens are doing scavenger hunts. My daughter's running around the house doing scavenger hunts on Wednesdays with the teen church. So there are really things that they're teaching me about what engagement looks like, because they don't just want me to be preaching at them. They want to feel like I can connect in relevance and lifestyle, which then makes them more open to the preaching and the teaching that I do at the church.
That is powerful.
Good.
Powerful. So it looks like Bishop, you need a TikTok. Did anyone else want to elaborate? We'll move
Actually,
on to oh, sorry.
I'm looking on the internet now for a church TikTok. And it's kind of interesting, to be honest with you. It really is.
Yeah,
Now,
TikTok
now
is the new thing.
I can see Bishop Baylor doing a TikTok.
Man,
Bishop, I'm
I
kidding.
I never heard of it.
I'm kidding. If you and I were on there doing a TikTok, I think they'd laugh us to death.
You both may go viral if you
Y'all will go viral.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you right now, y'all go viral.
And we'll have Pastor Tanya, and we'll have Bishop Jackson following up with us. Man, I tell you, we blow St. Louis off the map. St. Louis and Alton.
Bishop, the leader you follow, is it Craig Groeschel?
Yeah.
He has a TikTok.
Really?
Yes, you'll have to check that out.
He's pastoring 50,000 people, so he knows something about what he's doing.
Well, I think we're just about to wrap it up. Because a lot of my questions that your feedback, it really touched bases on the questions I had. Like one of my questions that I kind of changed around was, how is your church building community on social media that caters to young people? I believe a lot of you all have already established how you all do that, but if you want to elaborate more, feel free.
Deja, I was just going to say this. I think that one of the reasons why people like you are actually one of the most important people in our church, is because just like we're talking about with the TikTok thing, I think that many of us don't realize that you need a social media team. You need people that are strategists that really actually know what's going on out there, and they kind of push us. You know, my social media team, they're pushing me like, Bishop, will you please make this B-roll? Will you please make this video? Will you please make this post? So oftentimes people may see me as the face because I'm the representation of the church, but it's really the social media team, the people that have their finger on the pulse, that I have to actually submit to. And the thing is, it's uncomfortable because we don't really feel like we need to do all of that. But they actually have the big picture to tying our mission and our message to people that allow us to reach more people. So just like with the TikTok, I'm going to have to make a TikTok. And I don't want to do it, but I'm going to be good at it because I don't want to waste my social media time. I don't want to waste my social media team's time by researching the ways to advance our message and not working in partnership with their ideas. So I want to say to you that that's one of the reasons why I value our social media team. While every time they're asking me for another app or for another monthly subscription for graphics or another Hootsuite account so that they can add and do our social media calendar for a month, you know, all of those, or how many access and admins you can give to websites and all that stuff. While that stuff is really uncomfortable because we're sharing authority and giving more people personal space into the inner workings of our ministry, people like you is what will position the church for the future.
Wow.
So we have to see you as spiritual, not as carnal. You're actually very spiritual and very prophetic to the nature of our ministries for the future.
Right. Yeah, one of the questions, Deja, you asked us was, who are the preachers or ministries on social media that you think are doing a great job? Here was my list. the first person was Bishop Antoine Jackson.
Wow.
That's my first person. I had a few other, Jamal Bryant, William Murphy, Terrence Jones, just name a few, but you were first, preacher.
Apostle, I owe you.
I follow
appreciate
you,
that.
man. I follow you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
Follow
appreciate
you.
that.
You're good at it, man. You're good at it.
Yeah, and I know this is a part of the conversation, but the thing that I have tried to do is walk this tightrope of people being able to see that as a pastor, I'm a very real person, but also never, ever, ever at the expense of who I'm called to be spiritually.
Right.
You know, and so in saying to pastors and churches that it's not the devil, you can walk the tightrope so that people can get more buy-in to you, which then buys into your content. And our church, without fail, when we're doing in-person experiences, you ask people, how did they find out about us? It was social media.
Wow.
Some of my biggest givers are not local. Some of the people that share our content are nowhere near St. Louis. Like the broad reach that social media has given us is absolutely impacted our ministry.
Crazy. Wow. Well, let me ask a question then. Would you say that the money that we historically have spent on, say, 1,000 4x6 cards or 1,000 flyers should be better utilized in social media?
I would say both. And our print media is, we're doing this big outreach in a couple of weeks. And so we've had to up our print media for this outreach. But the print media still leads them back to the digital media.
Right. And that's mostly local.
Yep, and that's mostly local. So our print media has actually decreased, but we are throwing more budget into our social media online presence.
Gotcha.
And I will agree with what Bishop Jackson just said. One model that we use as far as like with our marketing, as far as with the business that we're in, we say 4 walls, 4 blocks, 4 miles, and then we just keep going from there. So we have a mixture of, the print, and then we have the social media, and then we actually have the TV as well. So, once we reach all we can within the 4 walls, we're gonna go 4 blocks, and then we're just gonna keep expanding and going, further out.
Good.
That's awesome. Did anyone else want to elaborate? You're on mute.
Keep muting it. Okay. I appreciate all of the answers, and I really am glad that I was on here tonight. I had a great time, and I learned a lot as well. But I wanted to ask, I think we covered pretty much everything with the exception of 5. I don't know if you, number 5, and I was going to see if there's any way we could elaborate on that. Was that one of the answers? Was social media one of the answers? What they were talking about TikTok? Did they relate that to that question? I don't know. If they seem like they have a different list than I have. Some of them.
So I actually just changed it up a little on my end. Okay. All the questions we weren't going to hit, but I just wanted to provide you all them as a guide. But I will certainly, if you want to read the question, or I can pull it up and we can answer that for you.
Yeah, I can read it. It says, what things do you think could be done differently to win young people back? I would just like to hear from the pastors what they're doing. And I think one of the things we did talk about was, I think Bishop Baylor said it, the decision makers, making sure that you have the decision makers in those age groups present. But I just kind of wanted to hear what the thoughts were on that.
Let me tell you what we do. One, we target the youth audience by allowing our youth to take a major role in our services where youth are most likely to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Number 1. Number 2, we also use the wisdom of our youth to help us in terms of how we program our services. Mm-hmm. I remember, man, our youth had taken over, man, and they had did a tremendous service with light show and all that. Well, our choir, senior choir got up and said, Bishop, we want some lights. We want some smoke too. We got them some lighters. We got to get them some lighters, some smoke. I mean, that's what they want. Thirdly, we've also turned over some of our services over to our youth to do whatever they want to do with it. And they know that we don't turn it over to new people, but people that are seasoned, that have been, young people that have been really grew up in church. So they know the parameters, okay? Nextly, we're in the process right now, Pastor Deja will tell you, of changing our websites, both for High Ground and for Faith Miracle Temple, because a lot of people don't know this. What a website is, it's the front door for church now.
Yes,
when anybody want to come to your church, the first thing they do is go to your website.
Right.
We're changing that to reflect a youthful move, even though we do, include all of the other demographics. But if you're going to win youth, you got to speak to them. Nextly, we've given our youth departments the green light to program whatever they want to do outside of our church. They do stuff outside of Faith Miracle Temple Church. Because, if y'all know millennials, they like to do their own thing. But you have to have capable leaders that can keep them within the scope of what you believe and what you teach. Sometimes Deja will tell you, sometimes I tell them no. Like for instance, I hope you guys watch our conference. It's television. Our conference this year is going to be totally TV. Everything is going to be shot and programmed. It's going to be produced. Okay, now they asked me, could we wear pants on the stage when we sing? I told them no. That's not gonna happen. Y'all put on dresses. So sometimes you have to bring them back, but not often. Lastly, we bring in youth singers, rappers, preachers to attract a younger crowd. And lastly, I listen to the youth. I listen to them. I mean, I learned from Bishop today. I've never heard of TikTok in my life, as far as I know. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is.
If I can just chime in to a couple of things that Bishop Baylor said, is, you got to build a relationship with your young people. One thing with where I go, there was young people in the church. There's one young guy that I mentor right now. He had been in church for 6 years, and the only person that ever talked to him was the pastor. And then when I came along, and God led me to sow a seed in his life. I heard Bishop Baylor say before, you got to sow where you want to go. So in order to build a relationship with him, God put it on my heart to sow a seed to him, and that built a relationship. And everyone was like, oh, we can't believe that he's talking this much, and he's going to other churches with us, and he's more involved now. Because if you don't build a relationship, it won't work. You can't. I can't tell you to do something the right way if I don't have a relationship, because you're going to get offended. I can't have a hard or tough conversation with you because you're going to get offended. And the same thing worked for me 10 years as a police officer in East St. Louis. I would get out. I'm walking the projects. I'm out talking to the kids and everything to build that relationship with them. It starts with that relationship. And once I had that relationship, then I can relate to them. And like Bishop also said, you got to have people that you can trust, but then you also can't, and in some ministries, and I'm just going to say, Hope Church of God in Christ, don't take my ordination. But, sometimes we have youth leaders that's 70 years old and been the youth leader since they were youth. And we want them to still lead the youth, but how can they? Because the worst thing to a young person is trying to use their lingo and talk like them, and you just don't have it. So you got to have people that's relatable as well.
Yeah, and to do that, man, I listed this, Dave. You asked the question, what things do we think could be done differently to win young people back? I wrote this down. The concept, this is how I try to connect with our youth. One, the concept of love. You got to tell them, show them that you love them. And this is huge, respect. You got to show them that you respect them. Number 3, you got to show them that you accept them. It took me a long time to deal with purple hair, and it took me a while, Pastor. It took me a long time, acceptance. And then oneness, that we're all one. And those are the things that I think will help us reach the youth and win them back. Some of them that are out of church now, they need to know that you love them, to respect them, they have a voice, and that you really care about them. And I'm telling you, when you do that, man, they'll jump through hoops for you. This generation is very powerful. If we can harness all that they are, man, we can win the world with them. I'm telling you. You see them out there grabbing stuff that the police shot at them, picking it up and throwing it back, man, they're courageous. They're some powerful people if we can get them to understand that we love them and all of that kind of thing. So it's just a great time, awesome time.
I think that is absolutely true, because I believe it was either Bishop Haywood or Bishop Hancock. You know how long ago that was. Yeah. He said, if it's ever going to be a revival, it's coming through the young people.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I mean, you can even look at all the protesting. It's the young people
exactly
that are leading those protests.
Yeah, because when we were their age, we did it.
Yeah, yeah.
I did that at the University of Missouri, Columbia. I marched, you know, racism got to go, sexism got to go, all white faculty got to go. If don't come around, don't go around, close them down. I did all that stuff.
Wow.
I did all of that, Deja. I did all of that with cornrows.
Yeah, I was going to add to that was to build off of what Apostle Bailey was saying, is that also being involved in social deals. That I think that oftentimes one of the reasons why young people don't find church attractive is because we don't deal with social injustices. We don't talk about the things that they actually have to deal with in their life. And so it makes it very hard for them to relate to the gospel that we preach, because it's almost like we teach, it's kind of like this separatist idea. Now, I know we talk about coming out of sin, right? And we understand that reality, but we do live in a world, you know, that we have to engage. And so I have learned to be involved socially so that they know that as a pastor, I know the plight that they're dealing with as a generation. I have a 3-tier approach. Is number one, ideas. I listen to ideas and I even let them do things I don't agree with. Look, as long as nobody's getting up there saying that the devil is Lord, all bets are on. You see what I'm saying? Because nobody's getting up there, you know, trying to preach the gospel of the devil. So I'm with any idea that pretty much is to benefit the church. And then I let them prove whether it works or valuable to the church or not. Number 2, budgeting. I found that oftentimes we don't put any budget toward youth programming. So because of that, oftentimes the experience that the youth have, they had to struggle so hard for it, they don't feel like the church actually supports it. Because it's like, I got to do fundraisers, sell pizza, all kind of stuff just to do what's in the church. I mean, if you're a paid musician, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
True.
So oftentimes we don't put any budget toward youth programming or youth ideas and experience that cause them to feel like they're not supported. Number 3, one of the things that I let them do is also not just be involved in the programming, but the overall structure of the building itself. If you come in our building, we're in a complete renovation project, and the set, the color scheme, things that are in the building, young people have contributed to. My daughter, I'm like, do we need 4 screens or 5? No, Dad, do 3. You see what I'm saying? So even in the way that the set is built, the experience of the church, they're a part of it. Do we put a chair here, put a chair there? How do you feel? How many lights should we have? How many movers should we have? Matter of fact, because I've gotten them involved in the set experience, it now has bled over into them learning the technology of running lights and sound and streaming and all of that. So now they want to be a part of the actual church experience that has just won me a million times over. So I have more hands on deck, even when adults sometimes are a little sketchy in their church experience. So I do a 3-tier approach, and that's worked very well for us.
Awesome. Yeah, we're doing some of the same things, man. They took our bookstore, Marla took our bookstore, Marla's daughter, and changed it. Right now, it's being changed totally over. Right as I speak, our bookstore is torn to pieces. My office, she designed my office. You've been in here. I couldn't have did this.
You got a nice office, Apostle, I'm telling you.
Man, yeah, this red chair, man, I would have
exactly.
red chair in 100 years. I wanted some brown in it.
Presidential. No, they keep you hip.
When everybody comes in, they love it. They love it, man. So, you spot on, man. Bishop, you are spot on. I'm telling you, they got a lot to add.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's so many more questions I want to ask, but I don't want to hold you all up any longer. And I'll be sure to reach out for any follow-ups or just furthering with anything. But to end it off, I do want, you know what? No, I'll have you all send that to me. I did ask the question of who are people or preachers or ministries, social media pages that you think are doing a great job, but I'll let you all send that separately, and I can just use those as examples in the ebook.
I gave you mine, Deja.
Yes, sir.
And,
yes, sir.
and I want you to know Faith Miracle Temple actually is doing very well. Watch you, Bishop, and engage in the comments, because I want people to know that this, I think we've made this generational thing just way too much of a problem.
Right.
You have value that you add to my life. And so that social means I engage back with you in content and share love and share your broadcast. And I've even shared some of your preaching clips in humor. Like if you go on my Instagram, I said you were preaching at one of the conferences and you holler. I said, this the holler I'm doing when I get back to church. Like that's the that's the
Bishop, I've seen some of your posts, man. I'm saying, oh Lord.
It works, so that's
whatever works. I'm in.
Y'all doing great.
Wow, again. And that is the conclusion of the pastors and leaders part. Make sure you tune in next week as we dive in deeper to talk to the young people of the church. You don't want to miss it.